HR committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd first like to call for a motion to approve the the HR Committee of the Whole meeting agenda.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Simmons, seconded by Commissioner Adams. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have no speakers tonight, and so we're going to move right into our agenda, our standing agenda items. Can I get a motion to review and accept the minutes from March 21st, 2023? That was our last HR meeting.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Simmons, seconded by Commissioner Adams. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, our first agenda item this evening is an announcement by our board president, President Elliott. If you can walk us through the upcoming community meeting schedule.
Oops. My reading glasses just broke on camera.
Would you like mine?
I'll try to read it.
Okay.
Wow, how embarrassing. The Board of Education is inviting the community to join us for two community-wide conversations on school reconfigurations and school closings. The first session will be held at East High School on October 10th at 6:30. Immediately following the ESA in our special meeting. The second session will be held at Wilson Foundation Academy on Saturday, October 14th from 11 to 1. Individuals wishing to share their feedback or questions can sign up in advance by calling the board office at 585-262-8525. Additional information on the reconfiguration plan and community-wide conversations can be found at www.rcsd-K12.org/plan. And let me just say, you know, this is really an opportunity for those who have who really are feeling kind of emotional about this, to have some conversation and really to get an understanding of why this board is considering this reconfiguration and school closure plan. It really is in the best interest of our community to help us to become even more stable. And it also gives us an opportunity to really focus in, to cue in on academic achievement. And so I look forward, this board looks forward to those conversations that we'll have at those two sessions before the board votes on it on October 19th. Thank you, Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you so much, President Elliott. Very important conversations, and these conversations will continue. I'd like to move on to Commissioner Adams, who is going to give us an update on our Family and Community Engagement Forum. Commissioner Adams.
Okay. First, I want to thank Commissioner Malloy and the HR committee for giving me a few minutes to provide an update regarding the Family Forum scheduled for. I want to advise everyone that we have finalized some details. First, it has been decided that the theme forum will be one RCSD in line with the district slogan. Second, the topics of discussion for the sessions have been finalized. The topics are reconfiguration, social emotional learning, literacy, governance, board role and purpose, safety and security, and special education. Parents will be able to attend two sessions of their choice. I am requesting that commissioners think about which sessions you would like to be a part of and reach out to our community liaison, Leslie, or Marisol Ramos Lopez, to let her know your choice. Again, the topics include reconfiguration, social emotional literacy, governance, safety and security, and special education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Adams. Looking forward to that day. Do we have any comments from commissioners regarding the upcoming CIGR Community Engagement Day?
I'm excited. I don't have a, President, can I just hold your mic?
Sure.
I'm excited about this opportunity. I think these ongoing dialogues need to happen. I'm hoping that we will proactively start getting out into the community more and more, as much as feasible, so that we are having a two-sided conversation and not a one-sided response. So I'm excited to see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Any other commissioners wish to comment? All right, moving on. First of all, welcome to our meeting tonight. And normal practice, whenever we're having one of our first meetings of the year, is to just reiterate the purpose of a given committee. So I just want to quickly run through the purpose of the Human Resources Committee and give commissioners an opportunity to talk about if there are any additions they'd like to see to this committee's purpose. But traditionally, the Human Resources Committee, our purpose has been to review personnel appointments, promotions, assignments, and upgrades, and this is what's listed on our website currently. We also review extra compensation resolutions regarding personnel. Our other task is to review tentative collective negotiations, settlements, pending legislative approval by the full board. We review diversity initiatives. We review and approve newly created positions and related job descriptions. The board also develops policies related to personnel for consideration by the full board, and we review employee recruitment and retention strategies. If there are any additions that you would like to see to our purpose as a committee, I would encourage other commissioners to perhaps get in contact with me so that we can consider any recommendations that you might have. Are there any questions? Good to go?
No.
You're making my job very easy tonight. Thank you so much. All right, moving on. We're on letter D of our discussion topics. There has been a proposal to change the HR committee name to Human Capital. And I've asked Dr. Miller to just briefly give us maybe perhaps an explanation for why we might consider such a change.
Sure, thank you, Commissioner Malloy. In the district, we are the Office of Human Capital, and human capital is much different than just human resources. Human resources reflects more transactional work that a department or office would do, and certainly our work is beyond the scope of just engaging in transactional work, but to ensure strategy and innovation. And similarly, in our field, as we've created updates to other titles and names such as guidance counselor to school counselor. This is akin to that, and so being consistent with where we are in the district, being the Office of Human Capital, that was for consideration this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Would any commissioners like to weigh in on this discussion for a potential change? This would require a policy change, by the way, which we'll get to in just a moment. I know Charisma is going to explain what would be required in the process that we would need to follow to change the name of Human Resources to Human Capital. But if anyone wanted to comment, we'd love to hear from you now.
Just a very brief comment. I support the name change because it makes sense based on the explanation provided. For me, it's more about not so much what we call things, but what we're actually doing with the things that we're saying. You know, we can call it Santa's merry-go-round, but if we're not producing those things, then it really is futile. So, but the explanation provided makes a lot of sense, and so I do support that name change.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Would anyone else like to weigh in at this time? All right, Charisma, if you could just perhaps explain to the board the process that goes into such a change, what would be the requirements?
So if you, that was kind of close. If you look at the board bylaws, policy 2300 on page 5. So the bylaws is actually currently going to be doing its first reading next week during our September 28th business meeting. But this would be the cleanest, easiest way to make that name change, because the board bylaws specify the names of the committees that the board have. And so if you look at page 5 of the proposed document that's attached to board docs, it will show what that change will look like. So we would, basically the human capital would switch over to say human resources would switch over to say human capital. So again, it's page 5, 4A.
And I guess a question that I would have is, if we follow our normal procedure for this type of change, it needs to go through the policy committee, have readings, and the soonest we would be able to vote on it if we went through that normal process, would that be the November meeting, if I'm correct?
Correct. It will be November meeting. So already left policy committee, is now entered in its first reading. So yes, correct.
And then it wouldn't take effect until January 1st?
Yep. That whatever that January HR first committee, that would be the first time the
Okay.
name would be used.
Now, that is one option. Is there a way to fast track such a name change? And I know that might require some research and asking perhaps our general counsel what would be required if we wanted to simply go ahead and move forward with like some type of motion to make that change. Does it require a resolution? Sorry to put you on the spot.
It would require a resolution. It would require an act by the body. The bylaws spell out the mechanism by where the bylaws can be an amendment, and really that would be an amendment. So, and I think if Commissioner Powell, as chair of the policy committee, at the very least, we would want to give her a heads up,
Okay.
and get some input and some feedback on, maybe facilitating something faster. But the bylaws call for at least a week advance notice to the body itself before you would even act on such a thing, and you require a kind of supermajority to make changes to the bylaws. So.
Fantastic. And a supermajority, just for the public's knowledge, is 5 of the 7
That's correct.
commissioners. Okay, thank you very much. So it looks like that's the direction we're going to be moving, most likely would be to go through our normal process of policy. Would anyone like to comment on a decision to go that route? Would you like to see this changed faster? Would you be okay with following the normal policy? Any opposition? Or Commissioner Patterson?
Yes. I don't, even though I agree that, with the renaming, I don't think there's any rush, to have this done. So I think we should just take our time and let the process work through. And there's many other things I think that we can spend fast tracking that needs our attention. So I don't really see the need to rush through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson. Anyone else want to comment? I know personally I'm fine with doing what we regularly do, which is go through the normal process. I don't think that we need to fast track this necessarily, but wanted that to be an option if people were interested. All right, thank you so much, Commissioner, or Chris, sorry. It's all good. All right, let's see. All right, next up on the agenda, we have a staffing and recruitment update by our HCI chief. Welcome, Dr. Miller, again.
Good evening, Chairperson Malloy, President Elliott, Superintendent Peluso, and Independent Monitor Alisea. Thank you. This evening, we're going to be providing you with a series of data points and information. And this evening's presentation is divided into 3 chunks. And as we've done recently in similar HR committees, we are bringing forward staff so that you can hear directly from some of our staff and engage with them. So we're excited about that this evening. I'm here as the Chief of Human Capital, and the slides aren't advancing. There we go. Just as a reminder, we are the Office of Human Capital, and I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues this evening who will be helping with the discussion. And we work to recruit, develop, support, and retain the most effective, diverse staff. For our agenda this evening, next slide, we'll be taking you through a staff vacancy update, the board has requested an update on fast-track hiring, as well as teacher certification action plans that we instituted last year and again this year. We're going to be talking to you about some of our recruitment pipelines, and you'll be hearing from 4 of our educators who are in those pipelines right now. And then lastly, we're going to be taking you through an interactive component of presentation to kind of model for you and to model for our viewing audience what we're doing to ensure culturally responsive educational experiences. And so we're going to be modeling this evening that with you. I would be remiss and really want to take a moment to really thank and extend my heartfelt thanks and appreciation to the Office of Human Capital team, which you see on this slide. This summer, they truly went above and beyond to ensure that our school district's hiring and staffing needs were met. A lot of sacrifice by members of this team throughout the summer to ensure excellence and that schools could open fully staffed. And while they were part of the work, certainly our principals and our directors of departments, it was an all-hands-on-deck approach to ensure that we were staffed and ready to go to open school. We'll recall that last summer we had significant needs. You'll recall last summer we had 650 positions to hire for. And we didn't make or have as much noise this year or this summer on the vacancies, but I would share with you that it was a more challenging hiring season. We had still about 500 positions that needed to be filled, and we certainly tapped the well on some of the strategies we employed last summer that weren't going to provide the same gains or opportunities going into this school year. So it was a very difficult and challenging summer, and we expect with reconfiguration and some of the other changes that are under proposal and for discussion, that next summer will feel quite a bit differently in that respect. So a big thank you to the Office of Human Capital team and our principals and directors. On this slide, this should look somewhat familiar in terms of the format. This slide shows you the journey of operational need and vacancies across the span of the summer. And if you look at the second column on the left, you'll note that we included what those numbers looked like last summer, just as a point of comparison. And you can see July 22nd, 2022 versus 2023, what the volume and need looked like. And you can see how that story went across the summer and certainly where we are now. Next slide. On this slide, similarly, this shows you the journey of school-based staffing and vacancies across the summer. The second column similarly shows comparison to summer of 2022 and the journey across the summer and where we are now. About 2% of our positions are vacant. And last summer I shared with you that the U.S. Department Bureau of Labor Statistics puts out data, and their latest set of data for the end of August reflected a 5.3% vacancy in educational services, and we're at about a 2% for teachers, 1.8 when you look at our entire organization. So we're faring better than other educational institutions across the nation, and we've had similar realizations in terms of where we are compared to other members of the Big Five. And so you see the data where we are, and we're striving to grow our own and develop teachers to fill the positions that we have vacant in the district. Next slide. This slide details for you vacancies at the present moment by content area. And you can see largely many of our positions are filled, but we still have some vacancies in different areas. We've had a couple resignations since the start of school, but we're working to fill these positions, and these data are as of September 14th. Next slide. The previous slides don't tell the full story, and so what we wanted to do was really kind of educate our public and our staff and our team about what teacher shortages really look like. We hear a lot about teacher shortages and that there is a teacher shortage, but to better understand current shortages, we felt it was important to illustrate through this heat map where we are. And it's important to understand that while there is a significant teacher shortage, there isn't a shortage in every area. This allows us and you as policymakers to make better informed decisions, allocate resources, and strategically develop effective solutions to the problems before us. We have used these data to inform our own practices around recruitment and pipeline development, and organizationally, we have more work to do to better target supports and assistance to retain and grow tomorrow's teachers today. And so we're working within our team and with our leaders to look at how we can address those high shortage and critical shortage areas. That's where we need the most help. Despite what you see on this slide, if you compare it back to some of the previous slides, particularly as you look at the current vacancies, you'll see that even though there may be high or critical shortage in some areas, we were able to fill our positions. And so this tells an important story and a more nuanced story about what our needs are and where we need to go in the future. Next slide. This just gives a little bit of a snapshot for the month of August and September, the local recruitment events and recruiting that we were doing in partnership with others. And we went all out again this summer to recruit locally and elsewhere. And we've been farming from our local charter schools and others, holding events, contacting candidates, and hiring early. We started very early in the spring and continued through the summer. And you may recall that earlier in the spring, we went to Atlanta, Florida, and Puerto Rico, and we're building out our remote and in-person recruitment events for this fall, for beyond October, and for the spring, where we'll be visiting or creating virtual recruitment events at HBCUs and HSIs, Hispanic Serving Institutions. We maintain all of our recruitment events on our Office of Human Capital website, and when we come back together for the next HR committee in November, we'll have more specific detail and information on the plan and where we're going and how we're doing that. And as I mentioned the website, next slide, we have totally revamped our Office of Human Capital website to make it more of a one-stop shop for candidates and current employees. This helps to ensure greater efficiency, clarity, and engagement for our candidates and our staff, which in turn can help to attract and recruit high-quality staff while promoting a positive image for the district, with clarity and transparency of our processes on our website so that candidates know what it is they need to do and how we're going to take them through a selection process. And we're working to continue to enhance our website for our current employees by providing training videos. We're building out training videos and tutorials to help people with frequently asked questions and other guides that can support them. Last year, we created a staff handbook, which was important and useful for new employees. And this year, we're working to build out further this human capital website so that it's both a service guide with rich resources and information, not only written information, but a video library to assist. And I certainly invite you to visit our website for yourself to see what we've done and what is available for prospective employees and current employees. On this slide, you see a summary of fast-track hiring for last school year. And you'll note that we have by columns, by employee group. Last year, the Board of Education afforded us the opportunity to fast-track hiring in all positions but certified administrators. This helped us to start staff sooner by placing them in front of students and in schools and departments by not delaying their start date. Typically, or previously, we were delaying start dates until the board was able to vote on a resolution to hire these employees. Fast-tracking our staff's start dates is important for several reasons. One, it provides a competitive advantage by securing talent early. We are, and I've said this before, we are in a war for talent. Not just in educational jobs, but for all jobs. And so by not delaying a candidate's start date, we can get them working and paid and in our district, working with our students and with our families sooner. Last year, when you look at this data, the column on the left details the total. So over the course of the school year, 461 people were in place sooner by not waiting for board approval. That's 461 talented people from our community who were earning a living sooner and servicing our students, our families, and our community. Waiting for board approval could delay someone up to 2 full weeks from starting in their position. Prior, the board graciously allowed us to bring forth resolutions for hiring twice a month. If we weren't doing that second meeting each month, staff might be delayed up to 30 days, their start dates. So both of those strategies are important because it puts people in schools sooner and it helps them earn their wages sooner. Fast-tracking candidates improves their experience, it addresses urgency to fill positions, and it helps improve morale of the other staff in our schools and departments because they now have colleagues who are going to help them do their job instead of them having to help make up for their absence or the position not being filled. Again, we're in a war for talent, and as an organization, we need to be agile and we need to be responsive to the evolving needs that we have, and fast-track hiring certainly helped us to do that. I think it's important to note that most school districts in the state operate this way. Certainly the other school districts in the Big Five operate this way. The Council of the Great City Schools in the previous independent monitors report called this practice out as something that we should be looking at. And it's important to note, and I want to emphasize this, that while we're fast-tracking hiring and getting people started, that does not mean that it comes at the expense of a candidate assessment or that we're doing background checks still and we're doing our due diligence in the hiring process. The goal is to expedite the process without compromising the quality of our hires. And so if you flip to the next slide, you can see where we are at this point. And we discussed extending this in May 2023. We need to revisit that resolution at the next board meeting next week at the board business meeting. So with that, yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
So I just wanted to pause for a moment. We've been through a lot of information so
Yes.
far, and I
This
know
is
we
a good
still
point
have
to stop.
more to go. I
Yes.
thought maybe we could pause and open it up to our commissioners if they have any comments that they would like to make or questions currently about the presentation thus far. I'm not really sure which side to start on, so I'll just start to my left with Commissioner Adams.
So I would just say that I'm really impressed with no shortage of reading teachers. It's an area that we definitely don't need to have any shortages in. And I'm impressed with the fast tracking because it reduces the need for as many subs. So, and that's pretty much all I have right now.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams. I'm going to go to my right, Commissioner Simmons. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. I do have a couple of questions. Thank you for all of your hard work. It is great to see the progress and where we're going. And I just want to check myself for clarity on some things. If we can go to slide number 5. And so here we list several different positions and showing how they've developed or have been filled. And help me understand the difference between full-time equivalency and full-time positions. Is there a distinction that I should be able to make between those two?
Yeah, so in our field, right, or in other fields as well, but in our field we talk about a full-time equivalent. 1.0 is a full position, a full-time 100% of a position. And in some roles we may have partial assignments, and that's why on many of those boxes there you see partials, right? So a teacher is generally full-time, they're going to be considered a 1.0. If they're working 40%, they're going to show up as a 0.4. In some of our other areas, like food service, transportation, some of the positions are hourly, and they may be odd configurations that might be 3.5, 4.5, 4 hours. And so as a percentage of a whole, that's where you have some of these decimal variations that you see.
Okay, so we're not taking part-time or positions and creating an equivalency to a full-time position, right? They're different.
Right, so we just add up what it is. So generally, you're going to see that play out in food service and transportation because of the hours of their workday, maybe not being a 6.5 or 7-hour workday. They might only work for a couple hours.
I'll follow up on that to get more clarity. And then I think I'm looking at slide number 6. That was the same slide, or well, same layout, should I say. And I'm looking at the classroom teachers, for example, and we have about 58.2 vacancies, it says there, if I'm looking at that properly. And so I'm wondering, of those vacancies, who's currently in our classrooms?
So with those positions that remain there, at this moment in time, they're likely, or this was last week, they could have very well been filled with a substitute who maybe wasn't committing to a long-term assignment yet. They could be that a full-time teacher is taking on some additional coverage and being compensated to that while we look for someone to fill that position.
Okay, so there's classrooms that are impacted, which means that there's students that are impacted by these absences, and some could equate to being a full teacher dedicated to a classroom, some could equate to multiple people filling roles. Is there a breakdown that exists, and can I request that, and can you commit that to the board question log for me?
Sure.
Thank you. And then my last question for this portion, I'll stop here on slide 6, is I know that we have like a lot of teacher absences that are happening, things of that nature that we try to mitigate, if you will. How do we prioritize those absences? So if we're trying, you know, again, like you said, we're in this pool for talent, right? We're trying to get things in. If an art teacher is out or an English teacher is out, like, do we prioritize one over the other? How does that work?
So yeah, I mean, we've seen some people, as example, come down with COVID, right? And so we've had some people go out for 5 days for COVID, and we have building substitutes in the schools who might fill in for a classroom. We have other teachers that might take on additional coverage to cover while that art teacher is perhaps out. We may bring in a per diem substitute who will take the assignment for those 5 days while the teacher is out on a COVID leave. But just with any other illness or absence, there's some effort that's made to fill that position with a substitute. If we know that somebody's going to be out for a longer period of time, then we shift into gear of finding a long-term substitute, somebody that's going to commit to be there for maybe a few weeks or even longer, so that we can ensure consistency of the classroom instruction, and looking to find somebody who maybe fits that need. So if we have somebody who's going to be out longer, we're looking for somebody who maybe is certified in art to fill that position.
But do we prioritize over the other at all?
So,
Sure,
you know,
thank
when, no problem. So when a sub or a teacher is going to be out, they enter it, and the clerical enter it into the system. The system calls for subs and then are picked up, right? You know, and subs pick up specific jobs sometimes based on where they're
Right,
interested
yeah,
in
I've
something.
seen that happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as principals, sometimes if I'm missing a art teacher and a third grade teacher, not to dismiss the art, sometimes we'll say to the sub, do you mind picking up the third grade teacher, and we'll switch, and
Yeah, I
we'll
was just
work the
wondering if
art.
there were priorities given to like an elected versus like a core subject where we know.
So it all enters
Yeah.
the system as is,
As
and then
is,
people
okay.
pick up the jobs as based on where they feel the most comfortable.
That's fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions, Commissioner Simmons. I'm going to move on down the line. President Elliott.
Thank you. My questions have more to do in terms of how we're going to be moving forward in the school reconfiguration, as well as the school closures. And it would seem to me that if we are in a mode of constraint, that we may not be as challenged with filling staff positions as we were previously. Can you comment on that, or the superintendent comment on that?
I will take that. Yes, absolutely. I think that is one of my major reasons about making sure that we have high-quality instructors in front of our children every single day, by making sure that we're not spreading ourselves across the district in very thin areas, we could better serve our kids and our families by ensuring that we have someone in front of them every single day. So that is, if you look at my 4 major reasons about reconfigurations, it's high-quality instructors, right, with high-quality staff, and as well as high-quality facilities, extracurriculars, opportunities, and transitions for our families. And those are, the first one is about the instruction for our kids with high-quality staff.
So I look forward to, in the future, coming back and giving us an update on where we are with our staff, with our staffing. And then just a comment on your comment about the board making the decision to not wait in order to hire those positions. But it is important to know that there still has to be checks and balances. And so while this board may be lenient on having the recommendations for hire to come, for our candidates to start working before they're approved, it is important to know that this body still has the oversight of that, and we just want to make sure that there's not more latitude given than is necessary to give, because we have to ensure oversight. So that's very important to me, that we're just not, that we remember that you have a board that has to govern. And then lastly, I would just ask, in terms of the recommendations that the state monitor has made for HR, where are we with those recommendations?
So we've largely implemented the recommendations from that were in the independent monitor academic and fiscal plan. There's some that we're still working through, but we've been largely compliant with everything that was in that report.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Elliott. Moving on down the line, Commissioner Patterson.
Thank you. Just had a question relative to the uncertified teachers at this point in time. Can we have, and maybe it's in a question log at some point in time, but can we have an update where we were, when you last reported in, and where we are now with the uncertified teachers?
We're going to be in just a few moments.
Oh,
that's part 2 of tonight. Yes.
All right, thank you. And also, I'm very concerned with the high shortage in CTE, career and technical education. Could you report on what we're doing to hire more individuals, what colleges we're reaching out to that have a specialty in this area?
Yeah, and maybe we could pull up slide 7. So the heat map that you were looking at, actually, could you go to the heat map next slide? This is just in general out in the local, in our environment. This is what we see, right? Despite these realities, we have been able to fill positions. And so if you flip back to the previous slide, you'll see, and I'm just looking here, right now we have no, I don't believe there's any CTE vacancies at the moment, although I do note that there's 1.5 in technology, right? So even though there's a high shortage of CTE teachers, in the Rochester City School District at this moment, we don't have any CTE vacancies, so that's good. So this is our reality, but the next slide was trying to just educate the public about what is in the workforce, or what is the reality in the workforce. So when we post positions, we have great difficulty finding candidates that are bilingual, ESL, Special Ed 712, CTE, Math, Science, Spanish, and Technology. Nevertheless, because of efforts of all sorts of people, we have been able to largely fill those positions. So that's good, right? What we're doing is working, right? And we just want to keep doing that. And so tonight, you're going to hear about some of the specific levers that we're employing to build tomorrow's workforce today. We need to sustain these efforts, right? I would say we, in the board, added 3 recruiters, right? we need to continue to have recruiters to do this good work, because it helps make a difference in filling the positions that we have. And so there's other strategies and levers that we've employed to fill positions and find candidates. We need to not lose those.
Right. Any other
Can
questions?
I still have another question.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you. As far as certifications, there's a different certification for CTE than there is the average teacher in the district. So I guess my second question or follow-up on that is, these individuals, even though you're now saying we do not have a shortage at Rochester, in the Rochester City School District, are they certified? What's the certification status for those individuals teaching in CTE, since it has a separate certification from, K through 12?
Yeah, it's interesting that the CTE certification is very nuanced, right? So math, science, social studies, right, common, right? In terms of CTE, there's some specific certificate titles, like unique and emerging, or there's a specific certificate for firefighter or for auto mechanics. And so generally what happens is, if we know we're going to create a CTE program or we have a CTE vacancy, we need to find somebody who has experience in that field. Perhaps they're not certified, right? And so we work with them, the state education department, to get them certified through preparation programs. So it's really when we know we have the vacancy or the need, or we're creating a new program, that we then work to find those people, because people are not necessarily just going and getting a certificate. We find the candidates, or we create the program, and then we help them to get certified. So it's a little bit different than a typical certification prep program like math, science, or social studies.
Yeah, and I don't mean to beat you up on it, and I apologize, but I'm very familiar with CTE, Trans A, Trans B, things like that. So I think it's very important, especially with the student of today. A lot of them don't want to go on to college, right? I'm a college grad, so I would push college. So I'm not saying anything's negative relative to going on to college. What I am saying is that, realistically speaking, a lot of our kids, what we should be pushing is skills at this point in time. There's so many manufacturers out there that are looking for these highly skilled children and graduates. So that's something I think that we should really, really concentrate on. Maybe do a PR campaign relative to our skills and what's available out there, because there are manufacturers that are just crying for employees. So I think it's very important that we reach out to the Buff States and colleges like that they push CTE and education and degrees and certifications in CTE, and hire some of those graduates. I'm sure there's other colleges out there, but I think we should make contacts at those institutions and let them know that we have a shortage, or we're going to have, there is a high shortage from what you're saying here in the future. So thank you.
And I just want to respond a little bit to that. What I will share is our CTE offerings and what we're offering in CTE, right? And then at that point in time, we turn it over to the Office of Human Capital and say, find us the staff for this, right? But the generation of staff requirements and programming come from us and from the teaching and learning side, right? And then we turn it over to the Department of Human Capital and we say, hey, I need this number of CTE teachers, start to outreach. But contacting colleges and doing all that has to be part of our toolkit in order to get those positions certified. But I do agree that we need CTE offerings, skills offerings for our kids, right? But we have to have the program before we can even staff it.
All set, Commissioner Patterson?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And I believe President Elliott has an additional question.
This is where I have some issue, and let me just talk a little bit about it, because I say this all the time. Just because you're certified doesn't mean you qualify. If it was based on certification, we would have 100% of our students graduating. So it's more than just being certified. And just to piggyback on what Commissioner Patterson was talking about, when you look at, for example, the careers to public, the Pathways to Public Safety Careers program, when that first began, you had certainly qualified individuals who were teaching those courses, right? But when they were being evaluated, they were being evaluated as developing. And many of those men and women decided to not to do it anymore because the evaluation said that they were developing when they've got, 30 years in the field that they were teaching in. And so where's the balance in that? We lost a number of good people as a result of that evaluation model. So yeah, it's fine that they have the certification, but again, like I said, even though we've got many of our teachers and others certified, doesn't mean they're qualified. So there has to be more to it. One of the things that this board did a few years ago was to include a policy around being involved in an urban setting for a number of years. And I think I want to have this board to revisit that because it's not enough. I think that we need to have everybody in this district to have at least 5 years of urban experience as you move forward. That's where the success is going to be. So while I understand from a regulation and legal legislative perspective, oftentimes, it doesn't work because we have certified teachers, we have certified others, but, we still, are not graduating our children. We still are not having success in ELA and math. And so certification in and of itself is not working for us in this district.
That's a perfect lead-in into the discussion we're about to have about the TCAP educators, and you're going to meet 4 of them tonight because growing our own, right? Our paras, our TAs, and people from the community and helping them become certified and incentivizing and supporting their education so that they become teachers. Absolutely.
Is that the only question? Okay. Commissioner Simmons has an additional question.
One last question, because I know you're eager to move forward with your presentation. This is around the recruitment efforts, and not so much what President Elliott said, although I align with what that message was. From the recruitment efforts that took place over the summer, and you've got a slide, I think it's slide number 9, how many of those candidates that were hired were qualified? Like, is there a visual aid or some form of data that I can look at? I'm a visual learner, so to see it is helpful for me. But how many were qualified, and for what positions did they typically qualify for? Did we get a bunch of folks that qualified in particular areas? And that information may have been shared. If so, remind me of where I can look for that. If not, I need it.
Sorry. We're going to show you a couple slides in a few moments that I think speak to almost all of what you're asking.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to all the commissioners for the robust discussion and the questions, and looking forward to the next part of our presentation. Before we get started, I just want to say, offer a couple comments as well. I want to say kudos to the HR or HCI department for the recruitment efforts last spring, during the summer. I attended a few of those events and just really well put together, and the effort is there, and you've got a really cohesive team, so thank you for that. I also wanted to say nice website changes. I'd love to explore that in more detail. I know a common refrain from the community has been that it's not been as accessible as perhaps it could be, and so it is nice to see that there are changes in orders that make that accessibility increase. Anytime you're increasing accessibility, we're going to get quality candidates, and so thank you for doing that. The last thing I'll say, and this kind of leads into the next part of your presentation, is that we know that there are teacher shortages across the United States, and this has a detrimental impact directly on our students. When we don't have the people that we need who understand our students in front of them, people who are certified, or just shortages in general, we don't see the outcomes that we want. And as we become a board that is more focused on those important that's why we're here, student outcomes, no one can underestimate what having a quality teacher in front of them can do for those outcomes. So thank you. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah, and I just want to give a shout out.
Point of privilege.
Go ahead.
Point of privilege.
Commissioner Patterson.
Thank you. So again, I've heard this more than once from one of my colleagues relative to certified versus qualified. And I'm speaking on behalf of all teachers, that it's very important that our teachers be certified. Because if you are certified, it is showing that you are qualified. It's showing that you went through a master's program and you've mastered education at some degree. Now, I'm not saying that, as in all walks of life, all occupations, there's good and bad employees. But the majority of our teachers have proven themselves to be good teachers. And they're certified through New York State. And I also went through that certification. And that was very rigorous and tough for me. So, yes, when we talk about certification, it's very important that not only this board know that our teachers are certified, that the superintendent knows that his employees are certified, and that our parents and our children know that they're being taught by an individual that's went through a rigorous course, to obtain a master's degree in education, CTE, whatever it is. So I don't want to belittle the importance of an education, a master's degree in education. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner
Let me
Patterson.
just comment on that point. I'm not saying that they have not gone through a rigorous. I'm not saying that they have not gone through a rigorous program, but the evidence is there that we do not have a 100% graduation rate. We're still low achievement when it comes to ELA and math scores. Something is missing.
Do you want to make
Right? Yeah, something is missing. And since we're not graduating our kids who are able to read, to write, and to do math, we've got to look at this from a different lens. That part may be good, but how has it impacted our school district? It has not had the kind of impact that we wanted to have. And so we have to look at how do we have something else in addition to that certification. Because at this point, we're still at about a 69%, something to that effect, graduation rate. Something is not happening. From my vision, it is 100% graduation rate. And it says to me, the data says to me, that certification is not in and of itself working. Thank you.
So I think what you're talking about, President Elliott, is pedagogy. Teacher pedagogy is in addition to the skill set that is obtained through certification, but we also have to make sure that our teachers are being set up for success in the classroom and the systems and processes that are in place for their development. What does that look like? Who is overseeing these things? Are they in the right buckets? Well, certain things need to be in the proper place, and that's what I'm seeing as well. So we have to do a better job of looking into those things. I'll leave that there for now.
I really appreciate all the comments from my peers on the board. Thank you so much. And it's really clear, just from what's been said, that student outcomes are incredibly important to this board. And we might not always agree on how we get there, but student outcomes need to be our renewed focus. So would love to invite you to continue on with your presentation, but thank you to my peers for all these meaningful comments.
And I think what we're going to do next, I think, speaks to or illustrates much of what the points you're all making. And I think, I'm super proud of the staff and educator effectiveness team and our citizens of this community and our employees who are standing up and stepping up and who want to become teachers. Our paras, our TAs, people that live in our city who we are working with to become certified. And I think we should be very proud of their efforts, their striving to do for our students and our community. And I think when we look at other urban school districts larger than us, right, they are trying to do innovative things because our colleges and universities are not producing teachers. We are having to do workforce development. That's very different than a human resources department of 10 years ago, 5 years ago. We have to develop tomorrow's teachers today. And that's what we're doing in the Rochester City School District. So I'm super proud of the work and the space that we've done. And, you know, I think there's significant opportunities for us to share what we're doing with other communities to further change the landscape in this war on talent for teachers. So with that, the staff and educator effectiveness team is doing this work. And so I want to introduce Kira Reedy-Vetter and Dr. Samara Case, who are going to talk to you about the teacher certification, action planning, the pipeline programs. This is all stuff we've done in the last 14, 15, 16 months. And we've brought 4 people that are in this program to you tonight who are going to speak about some of their experiences, and you'll have some opportunities to engage with them. But before we welcome them up in a moment, we're going to just give you the data about our teachers who weren't certified last year. Where are they now, and what this year's cohort looks like, and where they are now. So with that, I'm going to welcome Kira Reedy-Vetter to the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Miller, Commissioner Malloy, President Elliott, Dr. Peluso, commissioners and cabinet members, and our state monitor. As we've alluded throughout the evening, we're in the midst of a teacher shortage. And here in RCSD, we've responded to this crisis by creating pathways to grow our own teaching staff. One way has been by hiring educators who are still in the process of becoming certified and helping them over the finish line. Next slide, please. Thank you. So through the support provided by our department, along with partnerships with area, local, national, institutes of higher education, we've created what we're referring to as individual teacher certification action plans. Can we actually go back one slide? Oh, we're missing a slide. Okay. Oh, it is. All right. Through the support provided by our department, we've been able to lead to 41% of teachers who were uncertified last year to become certified by the start of this school year. An additional 30% of them are expected to be certified by the end of the fall semester. This year, we are continuing this practice, and teacher certification action plans have been created for 76 of our new teacher hires. Over 65% of these teachers are expected to be certified by the end of December, with most being certified by the end of the school year. There's a common misunderstanding that we're just taking people off the street and making them teachers. Most of the folks that have received teacher certification action plans have either already graduated from a teacher prep program or are enrolled in one with an expected graduation within the school year. Right, there you can see last year's data. Right, you can do the next slide. So as you brought up, there's concerns around the quality of education that's provided by our uncertified staff. But we are proud to share that of 3 of our teachers that were on teacher certification action plans or were working towards certification last year, were actually named Interns of the Year by the Career in Teaching program here at RCSD. And that's an award that recognizes the excellence in educational strategies demonstrated by first-year employees of the district. In addition to the TCAPs, we've also partnered with area and statewide institutes of higher education to create pathways to degrees that lead to New York State certification. One such effort is the ROC Urban Teaching Fellows Program. ROC UTF is the first teacher residency program in the Rochester area. And last year we had 6 graduate students participate in this year-long teacher residency training program that enabled them to co-teach with a veteran teacher while attending school to earn both a master's degree and initial New York State certification. We are proud that the program has expanded to 19 fellows this year. This partnership is an effort between the RCSD, the University of Rochester's Warner School of Education, the Nazareth University Graduate School of Education, and the New York University Steinhardt School of Education. We have fellows now working in several of our schools, earning their degrees and certification in many of those high needs areas that Dr. Miller referenced, especially special education, math, and the sciences. As Dr. Miller also referenced, one of our highest needs areas are bilingual education and teachers of English to speakers of other languages. We've been very grateful to have been involved with Fordham University. They applied for a grant this year through state ed and were awarded that. And this is allowing RCSD certified teachers to expand their knowledge and deepen their pedagogy in the areas of bilingual ed and TESOL by participating in a 3-semester, 15-credit program that leads to additional certification in those areas. Through that grant and our tuition reimbursement program here in the district, that program is free of charge to those who applied and were accepted. One additional program I'd like to highlight is our partnership with Roberts Wesleyan University. The corporate partnership with them enables any Rochester City School District employee and their immediate family members to receive 25% off tuition for any program. Roberts also offers 2 pathways to teaching that a lot of our staff have taken advantage of. They offer a bachelor's completion program called their Pathway to Teaching. That is a 21-month program. We have 14 RCSD employees enrolled in that at the moment. They graduate with a bachelor's degree and certification. It's tailored towards adult learners who are also working full-time. So it's a 1 night a week, 5-week each course, and they complete that in 21 months. They also offer a rapid master's degree program. There's no less credits in that than a typical master's degree program. It just comes faster. So it takes 16 months to complete that. We have 2 RCSD candidates enrolled, and they graduate with a master's degree, initial certification, and are able to do their student teaching while in the classroom they're employed. So it allows them to not have to take a leave of absence, which for many folks is a financial hindrance. So it helps pave over that barrier. Not only have we created these pathways for our employees, we've also invested some of our COVID relief funds to support staff over the financial hurdles that may have otherwise prevented them from earning a degree or certification. Through grant monies, we have been able to fund the Rock UTF program, the tuition stipend that is provided to our fellows. We've been able to provide tuition reimbursement to staff who are finishing their degrees, and to reimburse for certification fees, such as exam costs, workshop costs, and the fees to apply for their certification. This spring, we also, just a little note, we applied for and this summer were awarded a grant through the New York State Department of Labor's teacher residency program that's going to allow us to continue the Rock Urban Teaching Fellows through 2026. So thank you for allowing me to share our strategies and successes in building tomorrow's teachers today. At this time, I'd like to turn the mic back over to Dr. Miller to lead a discussion with 4 of our teachers who have engaged in these efforts. Dr. Miller.
Thank you, Karen. I'm going to welcome our teachers up. We're going to have Brother Kevin White with us, Carly Fox, Enrique Santana Cabello, and Marla Dominguez Garcia. Join us up here. We're going to have a little discussion, and we'll welcome commissioners to participate as well as we get into the discussion here this evening. We want to really talk about these educators and their journey to becoming a teacher. And we have 4 outstanding individuals here with us this evening who are on their path or have completed their path. And to kick things off this evening, we'll start with Brother Kevin, and if we could go to his slide, Tom, thank you. I'm going to ask each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves and share a bit about their background and their journey towards becoming a teacher. And we'll start with Brother Kevin.
Well, let me start off by saying good afternoon. It's an honor to be here. It's a privilege. And so I moved to Rochester about 5 years ago. Born and raised in North Philadelphia, and so I'm from North Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I came up to Rochester just looking for new work. I'd done some work up here before for about 15 summers, and so when it was time for me to leave Philadelphia, I knew where I wanted to go. I had done some work up here, and I had done some consultant work up here in Rochester, New York, with Freedom Schools. As a national trainer. And so I worked for the Children's Defense Fund out of Washington, D.C., and what we would do is we would train college students, project directors, supervisors on how to apply a 6-week curriculum for whatever state that the Freedom School was in. And I had the honor of working here in Rochester to start the first Freedom School to do that. When it was time to move from Philadelphia, I chose Rochester to come to, and when I got back into education, I went to work at School 22, and I was over at School 22 as a lunch aide, and working as a lunch aide after coming from Philadelphia, because I had played many roles in education prior to my arrival and in the charter school arena. And so from the cafeteria, the leadership saw my ability to work with young people and build relationships, and then they began to ask me about my background. I gave it to them, and they started to look into it, and then start to see if I wanted to do more in education. And I did, wanted to. And from working in the cafeteria, it was going from there to a TA, from a para to a TA. And by the end of the school year, I had taken all the courses or went through the process to become a substitute teacher. And that year, I was leaving 22, I became a building sub. And becoming a building sub with elementary school children is what turned my heart back into the babies, as we like to call them. And now currently working at 58 at World of Inquiry. And I was the building sub there last year, and I subbed for K to 12. And I got the opportunity to work with the young people on all levels. And so, though I love high school and middle school is golden, I found myself with the babies. 3rd to 6th grade is where I really feel that I could do my best work, and I wanted to get to them sooner. After looking at a few things, especially with dealing with black and brown boys. A lot of my work is dealing with rites of passage. Coming out of Philadelphia, a lot of my work is in creating programs for father and their sons. And so, as you see, I got 2 of my sons here straight from school, so they're tired. And so just forgive their nodding. And so when the opportunity came for me to go back to school, I took the opportunity. And so currently, I'm attending Nazareth University to get my master in education, to come and work in the school district, to bring all of what I have to offer. And I feel that it is a valuable skill set based on the history and my lived experiences, and coming out of North Philadelphia and then working here in Rochester, New York, and around the country in different states. So, thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kevin. Next slide, Carly Fox.
Good evening. Thanks for having me, everybody. I wear a lot of RCSD hats. I'm a graduate of 23 NRCS and then Wilson. I also served on the board. I was a student rep when I was in high school. My daughter went to 15 Yes, I did.
When? I'm sorry, Commissioner. When were you on the board?
Let's see, it was 92 to 93.
Oh.
Yeah, I was at Wilson and came and sat on this board.
It was like crack.
Was it?
It's hard to turn back.
It is. The district itself. My daughter started kindergarten and went all the way to 6 at 15 school. She's now at School of the Arts in 8th grade. And so my trajectory was I started teaching history in Nicaragua right after undergrad and was uncertified, then was in New York City as at a nonprofit that pushed into schools doing youth development, youth organizing. Then I ended up at an international school in Queens that we opened for Spanish-speaking students to sort of bring them up in both Spanish and English. And I opened that with the principal and served as the director of community partnerships and a lot of other hats that a small school staff person does. I never was certified and kind of hit that glass ceiling, felt it when I was on soft money all the time and didn't have a permanent position. Then my life took me a lot of places, including Brazil, had a kid, then moved back to Rochester and was an organizer with farm workers. But being an educator kept pulling me back. After 10 years of organizing with farm workers, I wanted to come in and be back in the district, like you said. And I wasn't certified, and it's just been so much work to get certified. I said to Chris that, Dr. Miller, that I was gonna have to hold back on complaining, but I did. I started at Brockport, and I got on board, and I'm now certified as, the 5th, 6th extension, inclusive social studies, 7 through 12. And then now I couldn't get enough, so I've now enrolled in Lehman to be certified bilingual, because I ended up in a bilingual position at 12 school. But before that, when I was doing my field observation, my first field observation, I ended up at RIA, which was perfect because I had that international high school experience in New York City. And Mary scooped me up right away to be a long-term sub. So I think I might have been that fast track because I remember being in RIA and them saying, oh, we saw that you were approved. And I was already working there, but I was approved after the fact. So yeah, so I'm still studying. I have classes tomorrow, and it's just a ton of work to be a first-year teacher, now a second-year teacher. I had like 3 or 4 preps, teaching middle school, teaching in Spanish, which is my second language, and it's just so much. I'm also a single mom. So I think like it's so great to be doing all this because I love it, and it's also just really challenging.
And all of these individuals are fantastic, but Carly was one of those CIT interns of the year, honored by her colleagues as one outstanding teacher in her first year, so congrats to her. Next slide, we have Enrique. Oh. We'll skip a slide, Tom.
Hi, my name is Marla.
We'll go back to Marla, sorry.
Oh. My journey with T-shirt didn't start in Rochester. I am Cuban. I came to Rochester in 2011, and I was a student at Oasis, and I wanted to get back to teaching. I was a teacher in Cuba. I went through a 5-year program in Cuba. I was a teacher. I was a vice principal. I was a principal in Cuba, and then came here. And I went to the district many times, asking, do you need bilinguals? And they were like, nope. And there was no information out there until I got in as a sub, as a bilingual sub, and I spent 4 years in a classroom every day teaching my kids until all this support came in. And I was like, okay, now I'm gonna do it. And I went for the master's at Roberts, 16 months, full-time teaching, full-time student, full-time mom. And I graduated at the beginning of this year, got my certification, and I'm still there, and I'm gonna be there until they kick me out.
And now Enrique.
Well, hi to everyone, and thank you for inviting me, by the way. Like Marla, I came from Cuba. We actually came together. So my starts on education, I have no prior experience in education. I'm a chemical engineer by career, and I've been working on the private sector for more than 10 years. And I've been watching Marla, trying to go back to education. I always had that thing inside me that I want to teach. Initially it was hard. It was being hard for her, so it would have been harder for me. And I was fine working on private industry. I noticed though that they need some science background. I mean, as a society, we need more science background. And we need to teach more science background. So as soon as Marla started, I was just following her footsteps. And I started last year. The year before last year, I started as a sub, picking different positions and different grades, just to see what it would be better for me. So I decided it was middle school. Last year I started at School 50 as a middle school science teacher. At the same time I started my master's at Roberts. This year the same. I'm a science teacher on School 50. I plan to graduate by the end of this year and get my certification. I mean, at this point I have an internship certification on 7 to 12 science teaching. So.
And it may not have been obvious, but they are a happily married couple if you didn't pick that up. With that, so thank you for your comments. Let's move on to our next question, and I'd like any of you to start and share, but how does your personal identity, including your cultural background, values, or life experiences, influence your approach to teaching and your interactions with students and colleagues? Is there anyone that would like to start?
School 50 has like around 80% of diversity. I would say around 50% of my students are immigrants or son of immigrants. As an immigrant myself, I think that it has helped me a lot to deal with different cultures at the same time. Get some integration in the classroom, in my personal experience.
I mean, I work with bilingual kids. I'm bilingual myself. I'm an immigrant. I hold them to the same commitment and the same standards. It's not going to be easy. Learning another language is not easy, but you can do it. If I was able to do it, you are able to do it, and we're going to do it together, and we're going to get there. It's not meant to be easy.
Brother Kevin, could you hear me? Okay. So a lot of my work comes out of, or a lot of my desire to work with in urban areas come out of my upbringing. I born in North Philadelphia, so I have a lot of brothers and sisters. And we all went to our neighborhood schools, our neighborhood school district, from elementary school to high school. And there was some very important people who touched my life in high school. So in high school, my life was going somewhere different. And one of my ninth grade teacher, Dana King, give thanks for her, she saw something in me, pulled me to the side, and she began to nurture me through giving me literature, more in particular history of our people and of African people. And based on where I was in my life at that time, she felt she couldn't do nothing else with me, so she called in support. And it was a brother, a man who was doing work with boys and other men in our community. And she called him, his name is Reuben Mills, give thanks. And he started to work with me. And Reuben Mills, at that time, in Philadelphia, we have school clusters. So he was responsible for, he wasn't a cluster leader, but he had clusters of schools that he was, that was designated to him, that he had young brothers at, that he would work with, if that makes sense. And so one of the things that Reuben Mills did for me was he showed me consistency. At that time, I had encountered my first black male teacher when I was in 4th grade. He was a substitute teacher. His name was Mr. Lett. And he's, in addition to Reuben Mills, he's one of the reasons why I do what I do. And I remember one class, actually, Mr. Lett came in, and he asked me if I would like to go get a haircut with him, and if he could call my house, and if my parents would give him permission. But at the time, who he was going to call, I wasn't sure. Anywho, I said, yeah, that'll be good, that'll be cool. And by the end of the day, Mr. Lett came to me and said he ran into a challenge or an issue with his daughter. He got to take care of her. So if I didn't mind, if he could give me the money so I can go get a haircut, and he'll go get one himself, and we'll meet back up later. And it was at that moment, it was years later, that I realized, after working with young men, that Mr. Lett never needed a haircut. And he showed me something that was intricate, and it was beyond the science, math, and English of schooling. And it was working with young children in the inner city who didn't have much material, who didn't have much confidence, who didn't have much respect, self-love, or dignity. And when he showed me that, that's something today that I mimic. So my program is the program that saved my life. And so when you get into the culture of, when you ask me about the culture of what I do, you're looking at, when you see my work, you're looking at the lineage of those who have raised me and those who have saved me. Bless you.
I don't want to go after him. Yes, thank you. My cultural background, I am a 4th generation Sicilian American, and but have been, in Rochester City Schools since I was 10. So I think some of that experience has definitely supported my being a teacher in the classroom. Very aware that of I calculated 124 students that I teach each day, 123 are students of color, and 1 is white. And 3 classes are bilingual, so they're Latino students, and then 2 are monolingual with a mix of African American, Latino, and just a couple of others outside of that category. So I think, I'm reminded of being different and my privilege and my implicit bias and all the work that I need to be doing all of the time to constantly be doing anti-racist education as a white teacher. And I like that it can kind of even the playing field in some ways with my students, that I'm trying to model a growth mindset and be humble and learn, especially around Spanish. With my Puerto Rican students, it can be really, really fun. So, yeah.
Thank you. Each of you have such remarkable and inspiring stories and individual challenges and struggles that you've worked through to get where you are and to earn that certification. Do any of you want to share any of the challenges you've had on your path and how you've either been supportive or how you've gotten through it, and what advice you maybe would give someone else?
I want to go before him, so okay. I'm going to jump in. Yeah, no, I've had, I really appreciated the CIT program, and then I had just a lot of mentors. I embedded my student teaching into my first year, and my mentor for student teaching, my mentor from Brockport, my mentor from CIT, and then all these other really incredible lead with their heart veteran teachers came just to my aid, and it was amazing. So that was probably a highlight. And then working at 12, I just got to give a shout out to 12 because it's been under Katie Treprenier's leadership and now under Anthony's. I think it's, they've really supported my quest to do a lot of organizing and social justice work. So my students, participated in Just Law, in the Just Law contest, and we, advocated for drinking station outside on the playground. The kids led it, and doing the anti-racist curriculum project. It's been incredible. Kudos to this district for embracing that so wholeheartedly, and our social studies department's incredible. So it's been like really amazing aspects. What's been hard is I had COVID twice already since starting with the district a year and a half ago. Like I said, embedding a lot of the schoolwork, having like a relentless workload at school, and then having to do all the work on top of it, scheduling those all 3 exams while teaching, so taking time off to like all the breaks, just studying, just nonstop. It's just been a little delirious, I guess, to be doing it to this degree. I forgot to mention that I already had a master's degree from Cornell when I started my certification process, so it also just felt like a little bit backwards, although I really love working with the kids, so that keeps me going, but my pay cut was $10,000 less. I'm going and doing 2 more years of schooling on top of already having done that, and I'm in debt from that. So I guess all that is just me whining a little bit about the path, and hoping that folks who follow get maybe just, it's easier. I have a ton of privilege, so I can do it. I have my family, I got all that, but I think like for anyone where it's gonna be that much tougher to pull it off, having maybe a 0.8 position at the school, or just getting a little bit more leniency and what the workload is when you're trying to add all of the certification on top of it would be great.
Okay. Challenging, indeed.
So while we are, answering these questions, this has just been such a rich experience to hear the pathway. And I appreciate this presentation because you have humanized it all the more, because we're looking for data. I'm always going to look for data. But again, it's that reminder of the human piece. And so I just wanted to just take a moment to acknowledge that. And when Brother Kevin is ready to share more about his path, I want to hear that. Carly, I feel like you said 92, 93, something like that. And I feel like I saw you on a school calendar. Was your hair lighter? Was it always big and curly and beautiful? Like, I feel like I remember you. So that's funny, because you were the student rep. And so we have to conversate. And then, Brother Kevin just kind of brought in this, like, the ebbs and flows and the reality of our children. And then this couple here, like, Senora Garcia, right? Senor, ¿cómo se dice your last name? Carvalho. I'm not going to say it right. I'm trying. But just to hear your path, I really appreciate this. And I'll be reaching out to really talk some more. But I want to give Brother Kevin another opportunity to finish up what he was sharing, because I'm very much intrigued.
So it's hard. It has been hard. One, going back to school, finding monies to complete a cycle. But beyond that, that is nothing. That is something we deal with over time. The hardest thing for me so far is going into a space where everybody don't have the same heart as you. And they couldn't afford not to have it because they don't look like you. Therefore, the children don't get what they should, which is the blood, sweat, and tears of everybody who stepped before them. So, in the university currently, in some of the literature that we've studied, as it pertains to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what that looks like, and what that means, and why it is here, and who it's here for, to have the hard conversations. These things are made up so that now we could get a foot at the game. And to know, as a 41-year-old African in the diaspora, that there's a lot of work being done now after all the suffering. Meaning all of the unkept babies, all of the unkept teenagers, the unkept minds and unkept emotions, unkept spirits are running around in our city, and we have complaints that is big as the sky. But who held us first? Who held these youth? And there's no pointing fingers because they don't know where to point them at these days. It's because it's a big issue. It's everybody's issue now. The fact that my sons don't frequent the space that someone's son is in doesn't mean that they won't see my son one day. And if I'm not keeping my son the way he should be kept, then they will also feel the wrath of not engaging with me early on. And let me make that clear and simple for me. We can keep our children apart for as long as we want in these different schools, but at some point, they shall meet each other. So the question becomes, the love that I'm teaching my son, knowing that everybody's not teaching that love to their children, for their children to express it the way I teach it for my sons to express it. And so we end up with a lot of activity at our schools because this is their social grounds. This is the one place they meet outside of a playground. Well, it used to be a playground for us, so it used to be the block where we played king ball, hopscotch, and jump rope, double dutch, and things of the sort. And so for me, what's been painful about my process is getting back into the school district, getting back into education at a predominantly white institution, learning the teachings, coming back to my people and still understanding and looking at the need and still feeling helpless. Still feeling helpless. And knowing that it has to be more than my sons who can read. They're my sons, but they're my sons. My sons have to interact with the world. And so when you teach your children, so you ask me, what would I say? What would I give them? So when you teach your children You cannot teach them with a divide thinking they will never meet my children. Because they will meet either my children or somebody else's children that who hasn't kept them the way you would hope they would have been kept when they meet your children. And so, if we do not want, what I know we do not want, and this is for those in the ethers, for all the teachers, one thing, and I'll leave it with this. I remember one thing being said to me, and it says that if a student comes to you and you're teaching the students in high school, be it high school, elementary school, in order to measure your work, and you're in a hospital, and that student come into your room as the doctor, would you let that student operate on you? Or would you go back to how you treated that student and say, no, send me someone else, because of the lack of love you gave that student, the lack of attention, right? The lack of whatever you didn't give that student, now it's facing you. And what would you do? And that's painful. It's every day. It's painful, you know? And so.
Enrique or Marla?
It was very difficult, like having to work full time and go to school full time. We were tired, we were cranky, and sometimes we didn't have time. But we grew up in a system that make you tough. So there was no shows or no calling in sick. We were there every single day, doing the best, because they are my kids. Oh, it's every single one of them. I know almost every kid in my school. They know me. They talk to me. They tell me what's wrong, even if they are not in my classroom. They know they have an open door. And I think that's our national hero in Cuba said, anyone can teach. Not anyone can educate. We are not just teachers, we are educators.
What can I say after those two? Three people. Yes, of course, it's been tough. Have we had support? Yes. Luckily, we have had support. Have it made us better educators? I hope so, yes. I mean, compare to my first day in front of 27 people that I didn't know. And it was my very first day in front of a classroom. So I didn't know my science. I didn't know what to teach them, but I didn't know how to manage them. From that point to now, I've had a lot of help to get here and to keep going.
We've hired 250 teachers like these four individuals, these fantastic individuals. We've lost 14 of them, only 14, because of the supports we've put in place, the partnerships that we've put in place with the institutes that they're attending, the financial support that has been put in place to support them. And so when we talk about teachers that are under the TCAPs, the Teacher Certification Action Plans, each of them as individuals have stories like this. And we, as a community and as a city, owe them a debt of gratitude for stepping up, stepping forward, and serving. They really are remarkable people. And so I want to thank Brother Kevin, Carly, Enrique, and Marla for being here with us tonight. And I would open up to the board if you have any comments or questions yourself.
So I'll thank you so much. And I feel like we're in really great shape just looking at hearing your stories. I I mean, I bow down to each of you because I respect for your experiences. I love the diversity of your experiences. I love the engagement that you obviously have with your students. And that type of engagement brings results and better outcomes for students. And so I thank you for your hard work. I know juggling work while trying to teach, I remember what that was like, and so kudos to all of you for that. And we're very lucky to have you in the RCSD. And so I wish you a lot of luck as you move forward. Please stay with us. We need you. But I really like the fact that you said only 14 people have left the program out of 250?
250, about 250, 14 we've lost.
Those are really impressive results. And I know as districts across our region and across the United States try to implement similar types of programs, I know I'm part of a pipeline program piloting it for the district that I work in to help increase diversity in our district. And it's a challenge to get people to volunteer for these types of programs. It's a challenge to attract people who want to go through these experiences, and so kudos to all of you. I just respect. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues on the board for comments and questions. I'll start again with Commissioner Adams on my left.
So earlier today we was talking about qualified and certified, and I just recognize that you definitely are qualified. All of y'all is qualified. I recognize that, and I appreciate it. I'm happy. I want to say welcome, but I would be remiss if I did not say a special shout out and congratulations to Carly Fox. I know her well. I know the type of person she is, and hats off to you.
Thank you. Also, Brother Kevin, you were very impressive at the 58 graduation. You were the speaker, and I was blown away. So thank you. You're a great public speaker, and obviously a great teacher as well, so I'm just thrilled, and I'm thrilled for all of you. Commissioner Simmons?
Thank you all for sharing your experience this evening, your hearts. And I hope that this translates up throughout, ebbs and flows throughout this district, because this was a different type of experience, hearing your voices. I will hope that the untouchable understand that they can indeed be touched. And I hope that we begin to, or continue to support our educators in this manner. So what I'm seeing on that slide up there is that there are social, emotional supports as they experience this, this piece. And I'll have some questions that I'll put in the board log for this, but just thank you so much. Y'all brought me to church tonight a little bit. And then Brother Kevin, when you first got up and said you were born in in North Philadelphia, you know what came to my mind, and I was trying to fight my laughter because I was about to start rapping. But that was funny. But no, thank you so much, and I'd love to connect with you and learn more from you. Ms. Fox and my couple over here, I'd love to learn more from you, and I'm serious about that, so I'll be reaching out. Thank you.
So thank you for your commitment to the Rochester City School District, in spite of what you've heard, the narratives that are out there. And what I'm also seeing, Chief Miller, is the work that the HR department is accomplishing. And I'm sitting thinking that because there's a narrative out there that's saying that the district is just hiring anybody with a 4-year degree, and it's just refreshing to know that that is not the case. But I think that that message has to get out there. One of the criticisms that we've had in this district is that our message is not getting out there the way it should. The board's message is not getting out the way it should be, and so we're starting to change that. But to Commissioner Adams' point, this is what I mean when I say that you could be certified but not qualified, and this is evidence of qualification. This is what I'm talking about, because if you are just certified but don't have this kind of experience, this kind of urban experience, there's going to be a disconnect in educating the kids in this district, as we have seen. But this board, a number of boards, have been really advocating for this kind of diversity. And I truly believe that we need to have people that look like our students within the district. I will not back down on that. But I also believe that if you are someone who does not look like the students in our district, but if you have a love and a care and will go beyond the call of duty, that's what our students and families are looking for. It's not only necessarily the color of the skin, but in terms of Black and brown students that are in this district, there needs to be hope. And there is hope in when I can look at someone like Brother Kevin, and I could look at someone like you who've come in as immigrants who have some hope. And I'm believing that we're in a position in this district where we're being hopeful. And so I thank you for the work. I'm also taking, for my job, my day job, I'm in the the HR program, a nonprofit management program at St. John Fisher right now. And one of the things that we were talking about today, and I'll address this to you, Dr. Miller, is about how do we retain them, right? Because they told us today and taught us that the onboarding process is about up to a year. And so we need to make sure that we are doing those kinds of educational experiences up to a year. And then I'll also say is that although many of them are already working in the district and have had some kind of challenges, but we've got to make sure that the system doesn't take them somewhere else. That our system is such that it supports who they are, because they want to educate the kids in our district, the students in our district. And so we've got to make sure that our systems don't make them leave some of our people. And they end up getting their degree, and then someone else is calling them into another district because we haven't learned how to care for our those who really want to do this work in our district. But thank you all very much. Appreciate all of what you have done. I know it's hard work. I tell everybody, this is not for the faint at heart. This is tough work. But our community needs you. And if we don't do it, who will do it? And we want to make sure that we are having kids who are loved, like your children are loved, so that we can move into a society where we are contributing to it, and a lot of the disproportionate ills that we see in our community are eliminated. So thank you for all of what you do. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Dr. Miller, and thank you to the staff who are helping to bring in the kind of employee that is going to provide this district with the success that I believe that we can have. Thank you.
Thank you, President Elliott. Commissioner Patterson.
I also want to thank you, for what you're doing. I think a perfect transition from the president to myself was the word love. There's a lot of power in different cultures and different races. So for me specifically, it's like the importance of the melting pot. Whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're brown, whether you're male, whether you're female, whether you're straight or gay, we're all in this together. And I want you to know that I listened, because listening is an art, to everything that everyone has said on this panel. I listened, and I felt from my heart your struggles. And I'm here to help you, if I can, with those struggles. But we all have to do it together. It's just not going to be one group, because I didn't grow up in the city. Not this city, at least. I grew up in a place toward Buffalo, but when I came here, I raised my kids in the suburbs. But I moved back into the city to be a part of the city. you join the Rochester City School District to be a part of the solution. So it's important that we not only listen to you as board members, but we learn from you. And that if you have any ideas on things we can do to support you and help you, that's what we're here for. So thank you again for being transparent. Thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for joining the Rochester City School District.
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson. And we're ready for our next part of the presentation.
Yeah, I just want to thank our panelists again. You're
thank you.
truly inspiring, as you've heard. Thank you for being with us this evening. And so now we're going to wrap up here with Dr. Samara Case, who is our Senior Director of Staff and Educator Effectiveness. And again, I think you're going to see the through line of this entire presentation come together with this next piece.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miller, and good evening to everybody. Commissioners, Board President, Superintendent, members of the Cabinet. I'm appreciative to be here tonight and to be able to bring this work hopefully to life. I've had the privilege and honor of doing culturally responsive education pretty intensely for the last, I'd say, 5 years, but really a lifelong social justice advocate through and through. So I'm very proud to be here. These are the intentions that we're really looking at as a district. And we've begun this work with our leaders this summer during Leadership Academy. And these, I think, are just goals that really transcend role. So these are goals for our students, these are goals for our staff, and these are goals for our leaders, right? We all want to feel seen, we want high expectations for everybody, and we want to feel that learning. Right? So my hope is to give you a little taste of the work that we've been doing and to get your engagement as well. So it's kind of like you're wearing two hats. So you're seeing what the leaders are experiencing relative to culturally responsive practice from the staff effectiveness team, and then really being partners in the work. So with that, we can go to the next slide. These are 4 agreements from Glenn Singleton's book, Courageous Conversations About Race and Culture. All of our buildings received a copy of this book this summer. And I've had, as I said, the pleasure, really, and the privilege of trying my best to live these agreements in my 22 years of education, mostly as a teacher and then on as an administrator. And they show up differently, right, with different roles. But when we think about these agreements, what I love about these is that these also transcend roles, right? So we can use these with our students. We can use these in the administrative offices when we prep for restorative conversations. We can use these for staff meetings. We can use these for cabinet members, right? And so this is the work. And I just love bringing this to life. That's my favorite thing to do. And so thinking about the intentions of this work and then how does it translate for our district. So I won't read these to you. You can see them up there, right? But be thinking about how are you showing up, right now? How are our leaders showing up and how are our teachers showing up every single day? So I want to give you a little snippet into the intention behind the work through the video, and you can hear from Mr. Singleton himself, sort of couching this work in a context around race, and then we'll go on to our next activity. So if we could see the video, please.
When we look at the roster of who's achieving and who's not achieving, there are predictable kids at the bottom.
So many times when we're called to begin this work, there is still an unanswered question of why are we pursuing race?
We're in a school district right now with a dramatic racial achievement disparity. I mean, just dramatic.
The evidence is really clear that there is a racial disparity in achievement.
But when you make it about race, you make people uncomfortable.
I'm uncomfortable every day.
We need a way of getting into it, we need a way of staying into it, and we need a way of making sure that while we're in it, we're just not sort of skimming the surface. Courageous Conversation is a protocol that is aimed at helping people to negotiate that interracial discourse about race.
It's been transformational in how I teach my students.
Courageous Conversations has given me the language and the tools.
I think my curricular choices are profoundly different, but in all my relationships, it's been profound.
It's given me a confidence to talk about race.
It makes me feel really good when I'm at a table and it's my white colleagues who bring race into the room, and that's starting to happen. I like that.
Conversations about race in our society and in our schools can unlock so much meaning and so much potential.
I want them to see themselves in a lot of possibilities.
Your ability to have a courageous conversation about race will transform your life and your practice.
So as I said, you know, I've had the privilege of working with educators for about 5 years now, pretty deeply around these 4 agreements. And rather than just, you know, sharing what they mean, right, we want to think about to what degree that we're connected, because we all have varying strengths and weaknesses that we're bringing to the table. So the next activity, I invite you to participate. If you're looking at these 4 agreements, and I think it's on the next slide, what I want you to do, and you can feel free to show with your hands or just think about it in your head, rate the degree that you feel that you're able to live these agreements within your role. Okay, so we're going to take a look. So right now I'll ask that you think about it for the first one, and we can do a 5-point scale. It's on the bottom there, right? So 1 would be, nope, I'm not staying engaged at all, right? I got stuff going on, I'm hungry, I got to get home, right? 5 would be, right? 5 would be, yes, I live and breathe this every single day. So we'll just go through this quickly. Just I want to give you a sample of this, right? And feel free to show it to each other, our colleagues here. So staying engaged, can you show me a 1 through 5? Right now. How about experience discomfort? Where are you at with that right now? And so we were doing this work actually last evening, you know, on an evening committee, and we had a really interesting conversation about discomfort as related to racial dialogue, right? So maybe like dissecting the difference between discomfort and harm, you know, and so these are conversations that we're hashing out as educators and as leaders, and we think that's really important, right, to put us in the best position to serve students. So if we take a look at the next, this ties into, right, this is our NYSED why. So in April of 2021, New York State wrote a call to action for all districts to disrupt systems of oppression, to give voice to marginalized students. They articulated that through a framework, but the framework is only an intention, right? So local districts need to make that decision to be able to roll that out in a way that impacts student achievement and disrupts disproportionality, okay? And so this is just a sample of what we think is a way, is a tool to get into that work. So if we look at the next slide, so we did this with our leaders this summer, and it ties right in to what our teachers were saying around the identity wheel. So I know that I'm showing up tonight to you guys this evening, right, with certain identities that are coming to the table. Some you can see by looking at me, and some are unseen, right? And how do those impact our experiences as educational leaders or as teachers? We heard from Brother Kevin, we heard from the panel so beautifully, right, around that question. So I invite you now to think about what is showing up for you. For me, I always feel like gender, as a woman, as a Middle Eastern woman, that people don't exactly know where I am or who I am or what I am, oftentimes is present in the work that I do. So I'd like us to model, if you will, right, this culturally responsive strategy. It's called stand, share, sit. Don't say it too quick. But it's a way for us to uplift voice, right? So we did this with the leaders this summer when they were at their table groups, and we said, everybody stand, respond to the question, and then sit after you share, because then I can see who's actually spoken, right? This is a great strategy in the classroom too. But if we want to just uplift and have equity and participation, right, this is the type of pedagogy we want to invite. So can I ask us to do this? I know this is a little unorthodox, right? But if you wouldn't mind, we can all stand. And the question that we're responding to is, how do these agreements show up in your leadership when considering your identity on this wheel? Okay, so we're thinking about the 4 agreements in conjunction with the wheel. And if anyone wants to share.
What are we sharing?
How do these agreements and how does your identity, as indicated on the wheel, show up in your leadership as board president?
Well, I'm always talking about race. That's one thing. I mean, I'm always putting it in the forefront, particularly because we have a 85% black and brown student population. But I have to admit, I'm sort of tired of talking about it. So while I support it and argue it here, you know, it seems like it's always black folk, and white folk are never, you know, looking at themselves, right? And so that's what is frustrating, and that's what makes me want to pull back, because, you know, who wants to give up power? And this really is about giving up power, well, sharing power. And so when you don't want to give up power, and then who are white people without their white supremacy, right? Who are they? And I don't think they want to really delve into that, many of them. And so for me, it's about ensuring for the black and brown kids in our school district that there's equity for them, that there are more teachers of color for them. You know, I hope we're moving in the right direction. I think we're moving in the right direction. But this is a heart change, as opposed to, you know, we can always put rules and regulations in place, and that will help at some point, with some part. But in totality, it really has to be a heart behavioral change.
Thank you. So then at this point, since President Elliott shared, so if she chooses, yeah, would take a seat. Can we do one more share out?
I don't know if I'm going to get this right, but all I know is that I am a black woman in education. So in my role as a commissioner, when I come to the dais, when I'm reading the documents and the information that comes through my repertoire, if you will, I'm cognizant of being a black woman in the world of education, and that I need to represent the student population that is reflective of me, and all those that may not be. But this particular population is extremely reflective of me, and I will do them an injustice if I don't maintain an understanding of what those needs look like. And so even in this exercise, I appreciate it, and I love that this is happening, and my mind automatically starts to go to, where's the evidence? Beyond the conversation, how do we monitor? Is this required of all educators here in the district? What does this really look like, and is it going to change or move the needle in any way? How is it going to impact the classroom? The questions just start to come.
Thank you so much. And so at this point, I'd ask for you to be seated. If we were doing this in its entirety, then everyone would share, right? But we're just trying to sample these activities so you can get a sense of that, because I share with you, Commissioner Simmons, that sense of urgency as somebody that's been doing this work for 22 years. Like, we don't have time to waste, and I understand that and appreciate that. If we're looking at, we're just gonna take a quick look at lived experiences of students, okay? So this next clip, because we have to honor who's in the room and who isn't in the room, right? And so if we take a look at this quick clip and then we can process this, this is something our leaders also watched.
People like me. People like me.
People like me.
People like me don't go to college.
Nobody's ever gonna convince me that I'm gonna be somebody someday.
Street cred, it's more valuable to me than my education.
My life will be defined by those who doubt me.
I know there are some out there looking up to me.
I'll let those AP and honors students be future leaders and policymakers.
Because me, I'm just one out of a long line of statistics.
Who knows, maybe I'll even study.
But it won't affect how my life is going to turn out.
People tell me I can't succeed because they can't see past my skin color or how I talk.
They say I don't care enough to be a first-generation college student.
I am the last person in my family that's going to be successful.
I'm aware of the skills and talents I possess.
This is my destiny.
That was me before Albert helped me see my potential, believe in myself, and turn all that around. And now?
This is my destiny.
I am aware of the skills and talents I possess to be successful.
I am the last person in my family that's ever going to be a first-generation college student.
I don't care enough, they say, because they can't see past my skin color or how I talk.
People tell me I can't succeed, but it won't affect how my life is going to turn out.
Who knows? Maybe I'll even study statistics.
Because me, I'm just one out of a long line of future leaders and policymakers.
I'll let those AP and honor students be looking up to me.
I know there are some out there, those who doubt me.
My life will be defined by my education.
It's more valuable to me than street cred.
I'm gonna be somebody someday.
Nobody's ever gonna convince me that people like me don't go to college.
So this is right, like setting the context for disrupting the narrative, right? So we want to like engage those stakeholders around the why, and then how do we do that, to Commissioner Simmons' point? So we can ask, in which we already kind of answered this question, but we asked our leaders these questions. Do you see yourself in those students? How does that impact your leadership identity? If you are a principal of color and you have a majority of white teachers, how does that interracial discourse look, right, during your staff meetings when you're talking about student performance, student discipline? So this is where the identity piece comes in. If we see the next slide, these were also questions that we asked them. And we actually had them move around the room to the different locations of the wheel. So we had those things up: race, gender, sexuality. And our principals, moved to the corner that they felt most strongly defined themselves. Because if we don't do that internal work, right, that's what equity work really is. Some people are more comfortable talking about systemic equity because there's a barrier there. But when you're bringing your own self into the work, that's when you start to move the system one by one. Next slide, please. which identities have the strongest impact on how you think other people perceive you. So it's that negotiation around seen and unseen identities that inform everything about an individual, right? That are really important to the SEL work. So our last tool that I'm bringing to you this evening derives right from Glenn Singleton. So you can see his compass that he creates, which again, all leaders have this book, and we've ordered one for you guys as well, should you choose to engage in the book. On the right is a version that a colleague and I created around how can we use this with students. So we took Glenn's version and we wrote student-friendly language, but we also use this with staff, right? And so we can have administrators using this tool with students in the offices and say, hey, I'm coming in from a feeling perspective right now. Where are you located on the compass? Right? And it really diffuses that conflict because you're coming to a point of consensus, which is the middle of the compass. So we're going to just model this as our last activity. We'll just look briefly at these equity statements. These statements were derived from a writing called 20 Things I Will Do to Become a More Equitable Educator, and I modified them for leadership. So this is a little sneak peek at what our leaders are going to be engaging in. But I will ask that we do a call and response, which is a culturally responsive strategy. So I will read the whole statement, and if you could join me when you see the bolded words. Okay, so here we go. Is everyone ready? I will step out of my comfort zone by building a process for continually assessing, reflecting upon, and challenging my biases, prejudices, and socializations, and how they influence my expectations for and relationships with each student, family, and colleague. So these statements operationalize what equity looks like, and they need to be unpacked. So what we're going to do is use this compass tool, and we can do this right now. When you see that statement, where are you coming to us on the compass? Okay? So if we had time, we'd actually do corners, right? Where you're thinking that as the educator. Believing, thinking, feeling, doing. And then we could process at each corner. But would anyone like to share, if we go back to that one statement, where are you, how are you reacting to that if you're looking at your compass tool? And you all have the compass tool in your folders if you want to reference it. So are you coming at it from a feeling perspective? Are you coming from a moral perspective of believing? Does anyone want to share? In reaction to this statement.
Well, that's what I'm about to do. So, you know, it's already, there's some discomfort, right, that I'm sensing around the table. But again, I've done this work, right? I mean, I've done this work. And so it's on others to do this work. And I'm no longer going to defend my position, right? And so, you know, for example, when there's a book, but I recall this, you know, in one of the jobs I have, you know, why are the black kids sitting around the table? Well, my question now would be, why does that concern you that the black kids are sitting together at the lunch table, right? So I'm not going to defend that anymore. I'm going to ask you, why does it bother you, right? Because we're fine, right? At the lunch counter at work, we were fine, right? So why is that an issue? So that's where with others, they've got to figure out why are they uncomfortable with black folk getting together, right? And
can I ask you if we're looking, if we can look back at the compass? If we look back at the compass, where would you say, what categorizes what you just said right now? Feeling, believing, thinking, or doing?
because I haven't read those statements, I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if it really fits under one, or maybe I'm doing because I'm making a decision.
Yes.
That I'm not going to do anything else per se.
Right.
Because I've done it.
Yeah.
And it's on somebody else to do now, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can anyone else respond to where they're at on the compass based on that for the statement that we did call and response for? Because I'm curious to hear from other perspectives.
I'll be brief. I am thinking. Sure.
What are you thinking? What you thinking, Amy?
Is this on? Yeah, I'm thinking I need to learn more. I need to further that continuum of learning. I'm enthused and excited to do this work, but I'm thinking I need the practice and thinking that I need to continue the work.
Thank you. And I think that I'll close with a huge piece of this work is vulnerability, you know, and showing yourself as a continual learner in the journey, and not being an expert, right? Because our perspective is altered through the dialogue, which is the culturally responsive work. So this agenda could shift based on the needs of the individuals in the room, which is culturally responsive. So I'll turn it back over to Dr. Miller.
Dr. Case, and I just want to thank the board, the commissioners, and our viewing public for this evening. You know, we are the Office of Human Capital, and this is what we are working to do in the district. And so we thank you for bearing with this running a little bit longer this evening. We will be back in November, and we just thank you for your time tonight. And we are working to transform. We started by talking about the HR committee to human capital. This is what human capital does. So thank you.
Just want to say, Chief Miller, thank you so much for this evening. I'd like to open it up for any final comments by my board peers. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you to all of our presenters. I feel like we just engaged in a professional development. I feel like I need to get some professional development credit for my own school district this evening. Thank you. But I'm excited to see what we actually do with our employees and that they have contact, and I would love to see how successful this is and how this is being applied building by building, and that it's consistent across the district. But I am excited to see this, so thank you so much for these initiatives. I'll open it up to my peers. I'll start at the other end this time. Commissioner Patterson.
Outstanding presentation. So very, very good.
President Elliott?
Yeah, Dr. Miller, this is the kind of work that I'm excited about that the HR department is doing, and you know, I'm hoping that people will really take the work that you're doing seriously, because it's going to impact our children, I believe, in a positive way. I think it will show in academic achievement, and of course that's the reason that we're doing it. But it will also, I believe, help with recruitment, believe it or not. So thank you for the work. Thank you for the presentations. Thank you for the right narrative, the true narrative that is out there, as opposed to, the false narrative that is out there. So thank you very much. And, again, thank you for bringing to us a few of the candidates who are in our district. Thank you.
Commissioner Simmons?
Again, I want to just express that I appreciate the intentionality put into the presentation this evening, everything from the beginning to end. Of course, that I have so many questions. But I appreciate what you put out this evening. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah. So that's all that we have on our agenda this evening for HR. I would just implore, I know it's been a long meeting here. I thought I was going to have the record in sharing a meeting, but that did not happen. But thank you so much for the patience of my board peers and for sticking around this evening. And we did have a commissioner leave, but I just wanted to, they had a prior appointment, and that is why they had to leave. Could you please fill out the Commissioner Board survey if you have the opportunity? I'll give you a few moments to do that, but can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Simmons, a second by President Elliott. All in favor? Aye. Good night, everyone, and thank you.